Welcome, one and all, to a Teamfight Tactics set 6.5 rundown. We're going to be looking at the new champions, new classes, and origins that are going to be in set 6.5. Currently, the set is on the PBE and should be coming out to live in about 2 weeks. So first off, we're going to start with the Chemtech trait. So that is one of the returning traits. You have a lot of familiar faces such as Singe, Twitch, Victor, Warwick, and Zac. But you will notice that we have some new additions such as Tryndamere and also a brand new champion to both TFT and League of Legends, Renata. So let's take a look at what Renata's got. So along with being Chemtech, she is also Scholar, and her ability is Toxic Wave. Renata unleashes Toxic Wave towards the largest group of nearby enemies, poisoning all enemies in its path for 15 seconds. Poisoned enemies suffer 25% reduced attack speed and take magic damage per second. Damage dealt by poison can stack. So I have seen a little bit of the gameplay of this. It is pretty interesting. She's definitely a support type and also a damage dealer at the same time. It is kind of nice that she is a Scholar and Chemtech because that kind of synergizes with Victor pretty well in terms of getting Scholars online. Should be really interesting to see if she dominates or not. Not sure at the moment. Definitely do think that Spirit Shojin will be pretty good on her, but we'll have to see. Then we also have Tryndamere as a new character for this set. Tryndamere spins in a line towards the most enemies, dealing 150% of his attack damage to enemies in his path, and empowering his next 3 attacks to deal 50% more damage. So what's pretty cool about Tryndamere is that he is a Chemtech challenger, and so is Warwick. So it's very likely that there will be a reroll comp that will focus around him, Warwick, and Zac. So expect that to be pretty decent. Other than that, Twitch is still here. As we'll go through, you'll see that the other members of the Twitch reroll comp were not hit, so that'll potentially be another good early game reroll comp to play. Moving on to Clockwork, as you'll see, none of the members have changed at all. They're all here, so Clockwork will be the same as usual. Now, one of the really exciting traits or origins of this set is Debonair. So Debonair champions gain bonus health and ability power. If there is a Debonair VIP in play, they activate their unique bonus. So what will happen when you're playing is in your shop, you'll see the Debonair units, and sometimes there'll be one that has a extra green icon and kind of a gold border to it. That will denote that it is a VIP. This is very similar to the Chosen set mechanic that was back in set 4. So if you're familiar with that, Debonair works in a very same way. So each of the Debonair units have a VIP extra bonus, which will make some of them pretty broken, I think. First, we'll take a look at Brand. So Brand is a Arcanist as well, and his ability is Brand launches Fireball at the nearest enemy, letting them blaze for 4 seconds and dealing magic damage. If the enemy is already on fire, they take bonus magic damage, which stuns them. And then his VIP bonus is Brand fires a second fireball at the furthest enemy. So very likely there'll probably be a reroll comp focusing on Brands as a kind of like 1-star reroll comp, similar to Kog'Maw would be my guess. Now moving on to Draven. He is a 4-cost, he is also a challenger. Draven starts spinning an axe, empowering his next attack to deal percent of his attack damage plus bonus physical damage. The axe will return to his original location after striking the target. If Draven catches it, he will empower the axe again. Draven can spin up 2 axes at a time. Passive, Draven ignores 50% of his target's armor. And then VIP bonus, Draven gains infinite attack range and ignores 30% of his target's armor. So VIP Draven carry is going to be pretty nuts, I think, if you can get him going. The interesting thing that I've noticed, and we'll get to this more when we talk about Challenger as a whole, is it doesn't look as strong as it did in 6.0 in terms of stacking it vertically. So I'm curious to see how Draven will be played, if he'll be played more in a Debonair focus comp or Challenger. Will it be more so of just kind of teching in to activate him, but having like Shard in the front line? But having that infinite attack range is pretty nutty on the VIP bonus, so should be pretty exciting, I think. Next up, we have Leona. So Leona is one of the champions that got shifted. She was previously the Academy bodyguard, but Academy went away, and instead she got put in Debonair. So her ability has not changed. And what it is Leona calls down the Beacon of Light, granting herself a shield for 4 seconds. Leona and allies within 2 hexes gain armor magic resistance for the same duration. I think that might be slightly different, but I could be wrong. But her Debonair ability is... it's not stated here. But when looking at the Mort Dog's rundown of Debonair, they did show off all of the extra traits. Hers is that she gets additional HP regen based on how many units are targeting her. So this will make her into a really strong frontline tank if you want to run her that way. So consider running VIP Leona. Next we have Syndra, who you may remember has very similar ability from the set 5 Syndra, which is Syndra flings the nearest enemy towards the furthest enemy, dealing magic damage to all nearby enemies upon impact, stunning the thrown target. But then the VIP bonus is that this ability will now CC or knock up the affected enemies that were hit as well. So that's pretty good. Definitely, I don't think you're gonna have really a strong carry potential, but this might be good in the early game before you get your VIP like Draven, for instance. Then we have Talon, another member who was previously Imperial. Imperial went away, and so now he has been shifted over to Debonair. His ability is the same as before, but now his VIP bonus in Debonair is his bleed now does true damage. So potentially we could have another Talon reroll comp, potentially, but we'll see how that shakes out. And then we also have Zeri. So this is one of the newest champions to League of Legends, if you're not aware, and her first appearance in TFT as well. She's a 5 cost, so hopefully she'll be pretty strong. Her ability is Zeri charges herself with electricity for 6 seconds. When electrified, she aims at the furthest enemy. Her attacks pierce and she dashes after every shot. And then her passive is Zeri's attacks fire bolts, each dealing 16% of her attack damage as physical damage, plus bonus magic damage to the first unit hit. And then the VIP bonus is Zeri's Lightning Nova radius is doubled. So the thing with Zeri that's pretty decent is her attacks will pierce through what she's focused on in the front line into the back line. So one of the challenges of Imperial from 6.0 was Samira was very much a front to back champion, and that meant that she had to get through front line in order to get to the back line. So the benefit of Zeri is that, yes, she will be attacking the front line first, but she will be doing splash damage to the back line as well. So potentially she could kill all the back line before the front line's even dead. So hopefully with a good setup, nice little comp going, you'll have some success with Zeri. Now, in the tooltip, it does say her bullets do 16% of her attack damage. Watching the Mortdog video, they were suggesting don't get baited into using attack damage items on her. What you really want is AP or attack speed. So most likely, Gwynsu's Static Shiv are going to be really good items, and then potentially Rabadons or Archangels. But we'll see once the meta shapes up. So that is all the Debonair units. Now, moving on to Enforcer. We still have Caitlyn, Jace, and Vi as Enforcers. But then we got rid of Fiora, and now we have Sejuani in her place. So nothing too crazy with that. I will touch on Sejuani and Vi once we get on to the other traits. Now we got Tom Kench. He's still kicking around mercenaries as well, but we'll get to them a little bit later. Now we have Hextech. So this is one of the new traits of the set as well. So the trait is, at start of combat and every few seconds, the Hex Core sends out a pulse that grants a 4-second shield for Hextech champions that, while active, adds bonus magic damage on attacks. The shield does not stack. So because this only affects Hextech champions, it's very likely that you're probably going to be running vertical Hextech if you play them, because it doesn't really make sense to tech them in as much. And you can see that at the highest levels, getting a shield every 2 seconds and dealing 100 magic damage, pretty strong. And we're going to go through these champions. You'll notice the first one here is Alistair. This is his first appearance in TFT. And from what I've seen of some early gameplay from PvE, honestly, he's a little underwhelming. The reason for that is his ability is Alistair charges through the enemy team, dealing magic damage, knocking them back, and stunning them. He then taunts the nearby enemies. So what this looks like is, if you're familiar with League of Legends, it's his EQ combo where he does the charge and then he does the ground slam. The issue is that I think he goes too far and he ends up going into the backline too much. And because of that, he's no longer really a good frontline tank, because your enemy's frontline, instead of turning around to attack the Alistair, will go after your backline instead. So it'll be interesting to see how he plays out. He is really cool, like design-wise, I think. I wish they would reduce the distance that his charge would go. Maybe stop charging once he hits another champion, or just does the ground pound at his target. But we'll have to see what happens. He is also a Colossus. They removed Scion, as they've removed both Imperial and Protector. So instead we have Alistair. Then next we have Jarvan. He is a 1-cost. So Jarvan calls down his standard or his flag to a nearby location, granting all nearby allies bonus attack speed for 5 seconds. So as you'd expect of a 1-cost, not too crazy. He's going to be a decent tank and stat booster for the comp. Then we have Lucian, who is back once again. Now, so Lucian is a 3-cost at the moment, and I think that 3-star Lucian is going to be a pretty strong comp. So how it works is that Lucian dashes away from his current target and fires shots at nearby enemies that deal magic damage. So, as you can see, at 1 star he does 2 shots, at 3 stars he does 3, or at 2 stars he does 3 shots, and at 3 stars he does 4. Now, you also see that he does have the twin shot trait, which means that you can proc out these abilities potentially more than once if you have that in. So potentially a Hextech twin shot comp, probably just having 2 twin shot just so it's active on him, will be pretty decent, I think. Next we have Nocturne, who is also another 1 cost. So having him and Jarvan in as 1 cost, we'll be able to activate the Hextech trait pretty early on and get the ball rolling. He is also an assassin, so he'll be jumping into the backline pretty often, or at the beginning of combat. And Nocturne terrifies his target, stunning them with fear and magic damage over the duration. And because he is an assassin and in 6.0 and 6.5, their abilities will crit always. That means you can just run a Infinity Edge to always have them crit. Next we have Sejuani, as I talked about before. Sedge is going to be one of the early tanks in Hextech, as also an Enforcer and the Bruiser. So pretty good defensively. Sejuani signals Bristle to charge, dealing magic damage and stunning her target. She then gains Frost Armor, granting her armor and magic resistance for 4 seconds. So I think Sedge is going to be a pretty decent, Bruiser, Hextech, Enforcer. Just kind of slap her in, have some nice CC. Nothing too crazy, but that's what you expect for 2 costs. Now we have Sivir. And I think Sivir is going to be pretty crazy, at least for the beginning. I think that a lot of people are going to be playing Sivir right off the bat. And the reason is her ability is for the next 5 seconds, Sivir grants herself bonus attack speed and her attacks bounce, dealing 60% of her attack damage to enemies hit. So, as you might expect from this, what will happen is she will attack the front line and it will bounce into the back line, much like Zeri, and very often will just destroy the entire team based on the number of bounces. As you can see, going from 1 to 2 to 3 costs, you have 4, 5, and 9 bounces. So if you can get a 3-star Sivir, you're going to be destroying things. And we will touch on it a little bit later, but Striker on her is also pretty crazy. So I expect this to be a very strong comp, and watch out. And then the last member of the Hextech is Swain. This is the same Swain from 6.0. As Imperial is dropped, this is where he landed. Nothing too crazy. Swain unleashes piercing bolts of Eldritch power and cone towards his target, dealing magic damage to enemies, but then healing Swain for each enemy hit. So, Hextech is going to be, I think, a pretty good early game comp, as you have 2 1-stars and 2 2-stars. So it could be a pretty good reroll comp, and then moving into either Lucian or Sivir based on your items for your carry potential. Then we have Mercenary. Nothing has changed for them. Same old, same old. And then we have Mutant. So Mutant, 2 of them got dropped, Kog'Maw and Mundo, which is pretty good because the Kog'Maw reroll comp is no more thanks to losing Kog'Maw and Garen and who else? Anyone else? Garen and Graves. So they're gone. But what's really cool with Mutant is it's not shown on this website, but there's now a 7 active trait. So none of the mutant variations have changed for their 3 or 5 costs. There haven't been any new mutant variations added. But what they have done is add that 7th kind of chase trait, which just adds on top. So we'll be able to see that more when it comes to live, most likely. But we still have Cho'Gath. We have Kai'Sa Kasten, who instead of Protector has been moved over to Scholar. And we have Malzahar, but now we also have Khazix. He's back as a 4-cost assassin. Let's take a look at him. So Khazix leaps towards the lowest health enemy, striking them for a percent of his attack damage plus bonus damage, increasing their maximum mana by 50% until they cast. So Khazix is going to be pretty interesting, I feel. I've seen a little bit of gameplay with him, and my one concern is that he spends a little too much time in the air jumping around and not enough time actually like attacking things. But we'll see how that shakes out. One of the cool things is the mana reduction mutant variation means that Kha'Zix will be jumping around and reducing or increasing the cost of the enemy's mana. So that's going to be kind of like a cool, disruption. But we'll have to see how well he does actually. I think that having the 7 mutant trait is really cool, especially with one of the new characters. If there's a mutant emblem, will make them pretty strong, but we'll talk about them a little bit later. And then Reksai is here. Reksai bites her target, dealing 75% of her attack damage, stealing her target's armor and magic resist. So she's very similar to Trundle, who got removed in moving over to 6.5. So instead of stealing her opponent's AD, she steals the armor and magic resist. And being a mutant, bruiser, and striker, I think those are all pretty decent traits, just to kind of like tech in for different comps. And she can become pretty tanky. I think a similar build to Trundle is going to be a pretty good like reroll, especially if the mutant variation is the multiple attacks or Elderwood. So we'll have to see how that shakes out. I think that a potential reroll comp with Reksai would be pretty fun. And now we have rivals. So if you remember from 6.0, we had sisters. And spoilers for Arcane, if you haven't watched it, go watch it. But at the end of that, Jinx and Vi kind of had a falling out, and that is reflected in this new trait. So in 6.0, sisters, you had to have both Jinx and Vi in to kind of get their extra special ability. In the case of rivals, you can't have them both in. They only get their bonuses if one or the other is in. And so this trait is active when you have exactly one unique rival unit, as rivals refuse to work together. Vi's mana cost is reduced by 20. Jinx gains 40% attack speed for 3 seconds after scoring a takedown. And it's not reflected in this art here, but the artwork in game is the original splash screens for both Jinx and Vi, kind of showing that it's after Arcane, a kind of like the current state of the world. So Jinx has not been changed for her ability, which, other than the fact that when she lands after doing her rocket, she will attack kind of randomly. So that means that she won't get stuck on the super tanky like frontline units anymore, which is decent. We'll see how that actually like shakes out in real gameplay. But Vi moved from being a 2-cost to being a 4-cost, and her ability has also been changed. So Vi shields herself and deals magic damage to her target and enemies behind it. On her second cast, she also dashes through her target. On her third cast, she instead throws her target into the air and slams him back in the ground, dealing damage to the circle around her target. So this is very similar to Riven and some of the previous sets. I forget which one. But she is a 4-cost Enforcer rival bruiser. What's pretty interesting about that is a lot of her stats don't come from her traits. So that means that she can kind of be thrown into whatever composition you have. Potentially you could run her as like a super tank, or you could be kind of cheeky and maybe do like an IE, Jewel Gauntlet, blue buff sort of build. But we'll have to see how that works. And then for scrap, most of the members have not changed. You'll see that Blitzcrank, Echo, Ezreal, Jinx, and Ziggs are back. Trundle was taken out. But we now have Irelia, but I'll get to her once we get into the Striker trait, as you see. And then we have Socialite returning, but this time there's now a 4th member, as they took out Taric, but they replaced Taric with 2 different units. And now Socialite can go up to 5. And you'll notice that the damage was reduced, and the mana, I believe, is a little bit reduced from what it is currently, and healing is slightly reduced, I believe. But if you get the 5 Socialite, all of the bonuses are double. So I think that a Socialite 5, share the Spotlight, duet, or just in general comp is going to be pretty crazy for highlights. Definitely something to watch out for. You have Galio and Seraphine returning, and then the new units of Gnar and Senna. We'll look at Gnar once we get to Yordles. As you notice, he's also a Yordle, but we can take a look at Senna now. She is pretty interesting. So Senna fires a beam in the direction of her target, dealing 175% of her attack damage as physical damage to all enemies hit. For each enemy hit, she heals the lowest health ally for 50% of damage dealt plus some health. So what's interesting, as you might notice about this, is she's also an enchanter. She heals, but she does healing based on how much AD damage she does, which is uncommon for most enchanters. So it's cool to see them kind of like shake that up, maybe make her into a AD healing, comp sort of thing. All right. So now we go down to Striker, and so Strikers gain bonus to AD by just having them in. If you have 3 of them in, they gain 50. If you have 5 of them in, they have 90. If you get 6, they have 160, which is pretty crazy. I believe that Striker is going to be a Spatula trait, so I think it's going to be Spatula plus Sword. So you may be able to get a 6 Striker fairly easily. Now, we've already talked about Jarvan and Reksai and Sivir. We'll talk about Irelia now and Gnar once we get down to Yordle. What is interesting to note is Sivir and Irelia are both 4 costs. So I think it's going to be a very similar relationship to 6.0 with Yone and Fiora. I think that Irelia and Sivir are going to be kind of rolled at the same time because they're the same cost. So once you get to like level 7 or level 8 and you do your roll down, I think a lot of people, if they get 1 or 2 Sivirs, they'll also start picking up Irelias or vice versa. So Irelia, her ability is Irelia dashes to her target, striking them for 108% of her attack damage plus bonus damage as physical damage. If this kills the target, she blade surges again at the lowest health enemy. So lots of resets. She is scrap as well. I think that having her in scrap is nice for that trait because it actually gives a fairly decent carry. Unfortunately, Jinx I feel like is kind of lackluster a lot of time. And I think her items you could build on Ezreal early game and then move over to her during the mid to late game. So I think Irelia and Sivir are both going to be pretty interesting. Now, we have Syndicate returning, but you'll notice that 3 of the faces are new. We have Ahri, Ashe, and Morgana. Shaco and Akali were removed, and so was TF, Twisted Fate, which I feel like, so Syndicate moves, I think, from a assassin AD or just like assassin build into more of a Arcanist Enchanter build now. So Ahri is, I think, going to be one of the premier carries, both in Syndicate and just in general. She takes the place of Lux, I believe, being that like premier AP caster. Her ability is Ahri fires an orb in a line, dealing magic damage to all enemies it passes through on the way out. And the way back, Ahri fires additional orb or orbs for each time she casts this combat. So I've seen some videos of this so far, and it can get pretty nutty once you get off to like 5+ casts. And as you'll see, the 3 costs will send out 2 additional orbs each time she casts. So you can really get that going. And blue buff is going to be really good on her, just getting out those orbs as soon as possible. And with Syndicate rate, she has that built-in tankiness and healing. What I think is going to happen is you're going to have a Braum Darius frontline, and then Ahri carry, and then the rest are going to be Arcanists. Because I don't know if 7 Arcanists is really going to be useful when the only overlapping traits are Braum and Darius. So unless you get like 2 Syndicate crowns, I don't think you're going to be running 7 Arcanists. Maybe 5. You might do Braum, Darius, Ahri, Zyra, and Morgana, and then put in like an Enchanter or a Scholar or an Arcanist to kind of like fill things out once you get the level 8. But we will see. Then we have my Queen, Ashe, back in TFT. This time as a 2-cost Syndicate Sniper. Ashe fires a volley of arrows centered on her target, dealing 100% of her attack damage as physical damage per arrow, and slowing their attack speed by 25% for 3 seconds. I honestly don't think that Ashe is going to be a carry potential at all. She unfortunately seems to be more of a support role again, even though she is Sniper. So, unfortunately, I don't think there'll be much love going to Ashe for this set. Alright, next we have Morgana. So Morgana grants herself a shield for 3 seconds and shackles herself to an enemy in a 2-hex radius. She then deals magic damage per second to them as long as the shield holds. If shield expires without being broken, all targets are stunned. If the shield is broken, Morgana instead refunds herself 50 mana. So Morgana is going to be this interesting Enchanter tank. So she's going to be in the front line, similar to Lissandra from 6.0. We will have to see how effective she's going to actually be. I don't know if you're really going to be... With the other enchanters, I'm not sure if there's any potential for like an Enchanter focus comp. But we will see. And then we have Yordles. So 2 of the Yordles left us in 6.0. And now we have Corki and Gnar replacing Tristana and Heimerdinger. So Corki, he is Yordle Twin Shot. Corki fires a missile as a target that explodes on impact, dealing magic damage to nearby enemies. So he's going to be the magic user replacement. So for 6.0, Tristana was the 2-cost AD carry, and Corki was the 3-cost AP carry. That's been swapped. So Corki is now the 2-cost AP carry. And Gnar is the 3-cost AD carry. Gnar transforms into Mega Gnar for the rest of combat. Mega Gnar throws a boulder at the furthest target within boulder range, dealing a percent of his attack damage plus bonus damage as physical damage to all enemies it passes through. While in Mega form, Gnar is melee, gains health, and his mana costs are reduced by 30. So what will happen with his ability is, as you can see, he's wearing his Jumpin' Gnar skin, and he will transform into Mega Gnar. He'll throw his Clock Tower boulder at an enemy. It'll then pierce through everyone and go to the end of the stage. But yeah. So that is all for the origins. Just taking a look at the classes. So as I said, Arcanist, I think the premier carry is going to be Ahri. And I think there's going to be a comp focused around maybe at least 3 Syndicate, and then the rest made up of Arcanists. It also kind of depends on what augments you get. And then Assassin, I think Assassin's going to be fairly dead, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. I think the fact that it's 2 1-cost Assassins, 2 costs, 3 costs, and then 4 costs, I don't know if there's really going to be any really heavy assassin-focused comps. But we'll see. Bodyguard, honestly, this has not changed other than the fact that Leona is now Debonair. So, nothing too crazy. Bruiser, we now have Sejuani and Reksai. Challenger, so this is what I was talking about earlier. I don't think that, looking at the challengers here, I don't know if a vertical challenger comp is going to be that effective. Because unless you get some like crowns or hearts to give you challenger bonus, I don't know if, because you're not going to be able to get Kaisa until really late. And even Draven is kind of rough. But having a 1 cost, and then 2 costs, and 3 costs might be something there. I do think a Challenger Chemtech Tryndamere comp is pretty consistent, but we'll have to see. And then Colossus, they did fix Colossus, so that way 1 cost, or not 1 cost, but level 1 of the Colossus are better. Colossus are bigger, more powerful, immune to crowd control effects. Colossus gain 1,000 health. However, each Colossus requires 2 team slots. So before, they had this really awkward like balancing of like how good the stats were for each one at level 1 versus 2 versus 3. This change with it being tied to the trait, I think is, pretty good. But we'll have to see. Enchanter, as I was saying before, we lost Tarek. We also lost Janna, if you didn't know this, which was a big component of a lot of teams that you could just kind of slot in whenever, because it was Scholar, Scrap, and Enchanter. I think the current setup is probably healthier for the game. I don't know if we're really going to have a good... We might still have a Seraphine Enchanter comp, but we'll have to see. And then Innovator, as we mentioned in Yordles, Corki is gone, and replacing him was Echo, which is very fitting for the lore. What's also really good about this is the Twitch reroll comp. When you only need to level up 1 more time to get in 5 Innovator, putting in either Seraphine or Jace. So I think that will really keep the comp around. And then, as you can see here, we have Silco. As you know, he is the first TFT exclusive character coming from Arcane. And it's really cool what they did with Silco. So his ability is Silco injects an unstable concoction into his lowest health allies, granting them 100% maximum health, bonus attack speed, and immunity to crowd control effects for 8 seconds. When the concoction wears off, unstable units die, dealing magic damage to nearby enemies. So I would not recommend this build that they're showing here. If you run Shojin and like mana items, you're going to end up juicing like all of your team and they're going to die right away. So I'm not sure what the itemization is going to be for Silco, but it's really cool. You also see that his unique level 5 trait is Mastermind. At start of combat, the Mastermind grants the 2 allies directly in front of him a portion of their maximum mana. I believe it's 40%. So putting that on to characters like Galio, who have mana pools of about 300 or so. It's really cool. He's also a scholar. He's going to be one of those interesting tech champions, I think. I don't think you're going to really be running a scholar focus comp, but we'll have to see. So that's that. Scholars, Renata, and Silco, as I said, both new, both high cost carries and Scholar. So we'll have to see where that goes. Sniper, still very underwhelming. You're gonna still have your Jhin, Orianna, Braum, Leona frontline, I'm guessing, but nothing too exciting. Zeri is also a sniper, having that ricochet attacks. Putting a sniper spat onto Sivir might be really good. Let's see. And then twin shot, Gangplank, Jinx are back. Lucian's now a twin shot. Corki is now a twin shot. So that are all the new champions, the new traits in TFT set 6.5 Neon Knights. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you're most excited for Neon Knights. What comps you want to play, who you want to, run most of the time. Let me know. Hope you guys enjoyed, and until next time.